Identifying triads is going to be a really important skill for us. And we want to be able to identify triads not just when they're in an easy to spot close position, like the way that we build them. We want to be able to spot them when they are in open positions as well. As we know, there are actually a variety of open positions any particular triad can have. So let's sort of take a look at how we might do that. And I have a bunch of open position triads right here. And what we want to do is we want to try to figure out what are these triads and what are the close position versions of them. So let's start with the first triad we have over here on the left. And starting out, we don't even know for sure if this is going to be a triad. But what we want to try to figure out is, given these three notes, can they create a close position triad? And if so, what is that? So we have, on the left here, we have a C, we have an A, and we have an E. And one of the ways to do this is simply by trial and error. Just move the notes around and see if you can pack them closer, because that's ultimately what we want to do. And then see if those closely packed notes resemble a triad that we know. Now, because we want to keep the inversion unchanged, we want to make sure that we don't change the position of the bottom note. So whatever else we do, we want to make sure that the C stays in the bottom position. Maybe it's the root, maybe it's the third, maybe it's the fifth. We don't know yet, but we want to make sure that to keep the inversion the same, that we don't move the note from the bottom position. So let's go over here and let's write a C next to it right here. And then it looks like, just eyeballing it here, it looks like there's a lot of space between the C and the A. Is there a way that we could fit this note up here, this E, into that space between the C and the A? And it turns out there is. If we bring the E down the octave right here, I'll put that A back in, we can actually compact these notes into what looks like a close position triad. So we started with this, and we've just compacted it down into this. So we have a C, we have an E, and we have an A. And it doesn't look like there's any additional space that we could fill in between any of these three notes. So do we have a triad? Well, let's see. Let's first check what the intervals are now that we have them in close position from the bottom note. So we have, from the C to the next note, we have the interval of a third, C, D, E. And then we have from E to A, or no, actually, let's figure this out for the bottom. From C to A, we have the interval of a sixth. So we have a sixth and a third. And if that interval structure looks familiar to you, that is the interval structure of a first inversion chord. So it looks like this is probably a first inversion triad. And if we have a first inversion triad, we know that means that the third is on the bottom. So if the third is on the bottom, that means that the third of this chord is C. So now we have to figure out what chord has C as its third. Well, all we have to do is go 3 down from C, 1, 2, 3, C, B, A, and we realize that an A is a third below the C, and guess what? We have an A right up here. So we have an A, a C, and then an E. And what is that? An A, let me write it over here since I've run out of room. A, C, and E is an A triad, or a triad built in on A. So here we have a first inversion triad in close position. And we start with the first inversion triad in open position. Let's take a look at this next one. We have an F, we have a D, and we have a B. There looks like there's a lot of space in between all of those notes. So let's see if we can compact this yet again. And again, remember, we don't want to change the position of the bottom note here. We want that bottom note to stay right where it is because we want the inversion to remain the same. So I'm just going to go ahead and write this F right here. And let's actually try a similar strategy to what we did in the previous chord. It looks like there's an open space here between the F and the D. So let's move this B down into that position. Rearrange the notes. Again, we're just working with the same notes, but we're now just going to rearrange them into this position. So we're going to hold the F where it is. We're going to hold the D where it is, but now we're going to move the B down here. And let's look at what our interval structure is. Is this from F to B is a fourth, and then from F to D is a 6. 6/4. And if that interval structure looks familiar, that's because that is the interval structure of the second inversion. So in fact, what we have here is a second inversion triad, which means that the note on the bottom is going to be the fifth of the chord. So what note is F the fifth of? It is the fifth of the triad that is built on B. B, D, and F. And here we have the B and the D up here. Now, if this seems complicated and very multi-step, don't worry. As you get a little bit more familiar, you'll be able to identify these triads immediately and without too much work. You're gonna be able to identify what the inversions are as well. So this is just a way to sort of get us started. We want to be very precise, and we want to break it down step by step. Let me just try one more of these. Let's go over to this third one over here, and we see again 3 notes. We see an A, we see an F, and we see a C. Let me play those for us. A, F, C. So can we compact these 3 notes at all? Let's see. Again, we don't want to. If there's an inversion or if this is in root position, we don't want to change that. So we're going to keep the bottom note exactly where it was. And looks like we can actually do exactly the same thing. Let's bring this C down here and keep the F where it was. Now we've collapsed this chord. And what is our interval structure? We have a third followed by a sixth. So that's the 6/3 interval structure, which means we have a first inversion chord. So the third is on the bottom. If that's the third, if A is the third, that means that F is the root and C is the fifth. So third, fifth, root. And again, if this seems complicated, really all we're doing is we're just collapsing this chord into its smallest possible configuration. So it's not quite as complicated as it may seem, but after you do a few of these, you will get the hang of it.